first real-world video, it's timely that this first report begins on April the 1st, 2013. Not because it's a joke, far from it, but because today the British coalition government, led by Conservative David Cameron, aided and abetted by Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats and barely opposed by Ed Miliband's Labour, have carried out some of the most treasonous measures in my lifetime. It is no exaggeration to say that people will die as a result of what has come to pass today. More people will be plunged into poverty, more people will have to choose whether they eat or stay warm, more people will have to give up family homes as a result of the spare room subsidy, or as it's come to be known, the bedroom tax. More children will be homeless or they will arrive at school hungry. It is a Dickensian existence in a world where some people are so rich they can afford to have gold bath taps. Everything I say is verifiable, much of it I've already written about, as have others, and it's happening right now. The events of today were first sealed at the beginning of 2012 when the Welfare Reform Bill was shoehorned through Parliament. And believe me, David Cameron and a vile toady called Baron David Freud, descendant of Sigmund, used every trick in the book to see that these measures came to pass. David Freud was so desperate to be part of this welfare shake-up that he turned from Labour to Conservative to spearhead these measures. He says things like, the poor should take more risks because they have less to lose, as he pontificates from his manor bed and enjoys a lifestyle of considerable privilege, bolstered by his unelected and unwanted role in our Parliament. I'm not a fan of Baron David Freud, you may have gathered that by now. So the two Davids, Freud and Cameron, got these vicious measures through Parliament by hook and crook. Even when members of the Lords, to their credit, did their level and absolute best and attempted to block these wicked reforms, so vicious are they to struggling and vulnerable people, but David Cameron and the traitorous bastards in the Commons overturned everything. They were determined that these so-called reforms were going to go through regardless, no matter what. They ignored advice from doctors and other professionals, they ignored focus groups, and they even ignored public consultation, all saying the same thing. Don't do this. People will suffer and die if you go through with these reforms. They did it anyway. I should add that much of these reforms were started by Margaret Thatcher. They were continued by Tony Blair, probably the single worst thing ever to happen to Labour, and they have passed into law under the stewardship of David Cameron, a man who not only had a disabled dad but a disabled son too. A man who I naively believed would not allow this assault on disabled and vulnerable people to take place because he knew better, didn't he? A man who, despite being wealthy and his wife also being independently wealthy, claimed every benefit going for their child, including free nappies and physical assistance. And yet he would now deny such help in the form of disability benefits to people who can't even get out of bed on their own and do not even have a fiver to their name. I'm raging about this. I'm doing my level best not to lose it on here. To me, this is personal. I was raised on what we used to call social security. I am grateful for it, and I have more than repaid it many, many times over since I started paying tax when I was 16. I'm happy to do that. I am happy to contribute to a society that spreads wealth. Not that I'm financially wealthy, far from it, but that's another story. So I'm mad about today. I'm mad that this has been allowed to happen. Mad that this marks a significant time when our national compassion level towards needy people is at an all-time low. It is an outrage that our national broadcaster, the BBC, has systematically failed to tackle the government on this. In my opinion, the BBC have been remiss to the licence fee paying public. I have said this repeatedly, and having previously made 3/4 of my income from my work across the BBC TV and radio network, I was warned that I was biting the hand that feeds. Did that stop me? Did it hell? There are numerous other broadcasters out there, and I went to them instead. That said, it still grieves me that so much of the media, and not just the BBC, has been complicit in the coalition's assault on vulnerable people. And how have they managed it? By making out that we, the working public, are being scammed by these scroungers. I use the term as a reference so as people know what I'm talking about, and not because I agree with it. I think actually it is inhumane and callous, much like the type of people who tend to use it. The truth is, these measures today have been pushed through on a lie, much like Blair's dodgy dossier. Lies or lies. We have been told repeatedly that there is this great lazy unwashed who are laughing at us from behind their curtain-drawn and cosy beds while we toil. Lies or lies. Less than 1% of benefit claims are fraudulent. What about the billions in unclaimed benefit? You don't hear much about that, do you? The truth is, those so-called shirker stories we hear so much about are gross distortions of reality. The Zumba Queen or the Golf King living it large and on benefits are few and far between. They are held up as examples to make working people angry and resentful at those who truly need our help. Divide and conquer, and it has worked spectacularly. Hate crime across all human spectrum has increased under this hateful coalition. I despise the way that David Cameron and the failed Tory leader, now Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Ian Duncan Smith, have wrought a whirlwind of hate against people. This government has demonised so many people, including elderly, single parents and those with addictions. Bankers got us into a terrible financial mess with their inherent greed and risk-taking behaviour, and people who can barely afford to make ends meet are being penalised for it. The government takes money from the poorest and weakest in our society while refusing to cap bankers' bonuses, just as David Cameron did the other week. Equally, he and his utterly self-serving Chancellor, George Give Us Back Our Paddock Osborne, have systematically failed to collect billions in lost revenue to their tax-evading city mates. When David Cameron uttered the most hollow words in history, "We're all in this together," he meant those who were wealthy like him. He didn't mean people like me. What we have witnessed leading up to today's new laws has been a dehumanising and bullying agenda from the top of the pyramid to the bottom, and we the people have allowed this to happen because we have been swept along on a tide of misinformation. But let me tell you, there are some people who will benefit from today's measures. 206 Lords and MPs who recently voted on a series of changes to our National Health Service. 206 Lords and MPs with financial links and interests to private healthcare companies. They will be the beneficiaries of the most savage attack on British people in generations. And they voted on these reforms and they stand to benefit hugely from them. And it's not even illegal, but then it's them who write the laws. See, I wrote about it, you can Google it, it's in the Sunday Express. I am genuinely distressed by today's introduction of the Welfare Reform Act. I am doing my level best not to lose it completely. Myself and many others, far longer than I, tried to stop it all happening. We gave it our best shot. It wasn't enough. We need more people to stand up and be counted. Please do. We need you. You need you. Spread the word. Let's fight back. Thank you. Take care.